Zuri Bakery never had an easy life. Growing up in a small, crowded neighborhood in Nairobi, she learned early that nothing would be handed to her. Her mother worked long hours as a seamstress, her father did odd jobs, and money was always tight. But Zuri had a fire inside her, a determination that no hardship could extinguish. While her classmates dreamed of fancy cars and designer clothes, Zuri dreamed bigger. She wanted freedom, independence, and a life where she could make her own rules. After finishing college, Zuri juggled multiple jobs at once. She worked as a cafe barista in the mornings, tutored students in the afternoons, and spent her nights learning everything she could about real estate. Every coin she earned went into saving, investing, and educating herself. Slowly, step by step, she built a reputation as a smart, fearless investor. She started small, buying rundown apartments and flipping them into modern homes. Then came her first big break, a property in the heart of Nairobi that skyrocketed in value. That success fueled her confidence, and before long, she achieved her dream. A stunning luxury penthouse overlooking the city skyline, a symbol of everything she had fought for. Her husband Malik seemed proud. He always smiled, congratulated her achievements, and called her his queen of ambition. But beneath the surface, Zuri noticed subtle tension. Malik's words sometimes carried a hint of doubt, a quiet fear that her success might overshadow him. And then there was Queeneth Bakery, Malik's mother, a woman who measured everything in wealth and status. From the first time they met, Queeneth made it clear she believed Zuri didn't truly belong in the world of luxury. She watched Zuri with sharp, calculating eyes, her every compliment dripping with judgment. Zuri felt the storm brewing, but she didn't back down. She had fought too hard to stop now, and nothing, not even family, would take her shine away. Zuri tried to keep her life simple, but living with Malik's family was never easy. From the very first dinner at their home, Queeneth Bakery made sure Zuri felt out of place. She had this way of talking, soft, polite words that carried sharp edges underneath. "Oh, Malik's ex used to love this dish," she'd say with a smile, glancing at Zuri. "I wonder if you'll like it as much." Or, when Malik and his ex traveled, they always stayed at such beautiful hotels. Every comment, every memory she dragged into conversation, was a reminder that Zuri didn't fit the mold of what Queeneth considered a proper bakery daughter-in-law. Malik never stood up for her. At first, Zuri thought he just didn't want to cause a scene, but over time, she realized it was more than that. He made excuses, laughed nervously, and often changed the subject. "Mother doesn't mean it that way," he'd say, or "she's just nostalgic." Every time Malik failed to defend her, it stung more than Queeneth's word. Zuri started noticing that the woman she married, the man she trusted, was quietly siding with the person who tried to undermine her at every turn. Then the attacks became less subtle. Queeneth started dropping hints about Zuri's penthouse, her pride and joy. "It's a lovely apartment, Zuri," she'd say during brunch with a sly smile. "But bakery property has always stayed in the bakery bloodline." Zuri could feel the jealousy in her voice like a heavy cloud hovering over every interaction. She knew her hard work had earned her this penthouse, every nail, every floorboard a testament to her late nights, her sacrifices, and her endless hustle. And yet, here was Queeneth, subtly planting the idea that Zuri had no real claim, that it wasn't truly hers. At first, Zuri tried to ignore it. She smiled, nodded, and chose peace. She didn't want arguments, she didn't want drama. She focused on her work, her investments, and her life with Malik, the life she had fought so hard to build. But deep down, she couldn't ignore the growing storm. Queeneth's eyes lingered too long on her keys, her invitations, her very presence. Every word, every glance, every casual remark carried a weight that Zuri couldn't shake. Zuri knew she had to be careful. She wasn't going to let anyone see her fear or her anger. Not Malik, not Queeneth. She kept her calm, her smile, her composure. She continued to rise quietly, confidently, while Queeneth's obsession with her life, her wealth, and her success grew louder. And in that quiet, tense space between polite conversation and hidden resentment, Zuri began to see the truth. The fight for her peace, her home, and her dignity was only just beginning. Zuri received the invitation on a sunny Monday morning, and she immediately felt a knot in her stomach. Queeneth had personally delivered it, her smile wide and eyes sharp, the kind of smile that never reached the heart. "We expect you and Malik at the wedding in Mombasa," she said, handing over the envelope like it was a royal decree. "There will be a special announcement. You wouldn't want to miss it, would you?" Zuri held the envelope tightly, reading the elegant script over and over. Mombasa. A grand wedding. The elite bakery family, in all their wealth and status, gathered in one place. She had been to many weddings before, but something about Queeneth's tone, the way she emphasized special announcement, set off alarms in Zuri's mind. It felt like a trap, carefully laid and perfectly polished. Yet, she couldn't show fear. She couldn't let Queeneth see that she was uneasy. Malik, as always, tried to calm her. It's just a wedding, he said with that same half-smile, the one that never quite reached his eyes. Family. We should go, make an appearance, support everyone. His words were meant to reassure her, but Zuri could feel the hesitation behind them. He didn't know, or didn't want to know, how Queeneth truly operated. As the day of the wedding approached, Zuri began preparing. She chose a sleek, elegant dress, subtle enough to not attract undue attention, yet confident enough to remind herself she belonged anywhere she went. She practiced her smile in the mirror, reminding herself that grace was her weapon. Every interaction with Queeneth had taught her that dignity could be more powerful than anger. When they arrived in Mombasa, the scale of the event was staggering. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings of the grand hall, golden accents glimmered in the soft lights, and the air smelled of expensive perfume and tropical flowers. Guests mingled in designer gowns and tailored suits, all eyes turning toward the arriving bakery. Zuri felt a pang of discomfort. This world was not hers by birth, yet she had built her way into it. She reminded herself of that as Malik held her hand lightly, his support visible but quiet. Queeneth, of course, made her grand entrance, dressed in gold and pearls, her posture perfect, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. She approached Zuri slowly, every step measured. "I'm so glad you made it," she said sweetly, her voice silky but cold. "And just wait until you hear what I have to announce." The words were innocent, but Zuri felt the underlying threat, the veiled warning. Be ready for anything. As Zuri looked around at the sea of curious, expectant faces, she realized the truth. Queeneth had orchestrated this moment carefully. Cameras everywhere. Social media posts already planned. And Zuri? She was the star of this performance, whether she liked it or not. The stage was set, the audience waiting, and the spotlight was about to find her. What would happen next? She didn't yet know, but one thing was certain. She had to stay calm, stay strong, and be ready. The moment had arrived. The grand hall of the Mombasa wedding buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the low hum of polite conversation. Zuri felt a tight knot in her stomach, reminding her that something felt off. She held Malik's hand, forcing a smile, telling herself she could handle whatever Queeneth had planned. But she had no idea just how public, how humiliating, this moment would be. Queeneth stepped forward, her golden gown shimmering under the chandelier lights. She raised her glass, drawing everyone's attention, and then turned her gaze to Zuri. "And here," she said, her voice loud enough for the entire room, "is my son's wife, Zuri." The word seemed normal at first, but the next one's cut like ice. She is, well, lucky, I suppose, to have married into the bakery family. But let's be honest, she's not a real bakery. Gasps rippled through the room. Guests exchanged shocked looks. Cameras snapped furiously, phones were raised. Zuri froze, her smile faltering, her pulse racing. The whispers started instantly, low murmurs turning into louder speculations. She had never felt so exposed, so small, in a room full of people. Then Queeneth's attack landed like a hammer. "And this penthouse she's so proud of? It doesn't belong to her," she declared, her voice dripping with authority. "It belongs to the bakery family. Malik is the real heir, and everything he touches, well, it's our bloodline that matters." She paused, letting the words sink in, letting the gasps and murmurs swirl around the hall like a storm. Zuri's mind raced. She felt her cheeks burn with a mix of anger, embarrassment, and disbelief. She had worked so hard for that penthouse, every sleepless night, every investment, every risk, all to be publicly told that she didn't deserve it. She glanced at Malik, hoping for support, some sign that he would step in and defend her, but his face was pale, tight-lipped, and frozen. He stayed silent. Another betrayal. Another proof that Queeneth's influence over him ran deep. Zuri's instincts screamed at her to retreat, to run out of the hall and escape the humiliation. But she didn't. She held her head high, took a slow, deliberate breath, and reminded herself of who she was, a woman who had clawed her way from nothing to something remarkable. The cameras kept flashing, the whispers kept spreading, and Queeneth's eyes sparkled with triumph. For the first time, Zuri realized just how far Queeneth was willing to go to undermine her. This wasn't just jealousy. It was a plan, a carefully crafted public attack meant to humiliate her and claim what wasn't theirs. Zuri's heart pounded, not with fear, but with the kind of quiet, burning anger that fuels action. She would not let this go unanswered. Not now. Not ever. The wedding continued around her, full of celebration and chatter, but Zuri felt a shift inside, a calm, sharp focus. The stage had been set, the audience had witnessed the betrayal, and from this moment on, nothing would be the same. The room went silent. Queeneth held up a sleek, official-looking document, the kind that could make anyone pause. "And now," she said, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction, "this penthouse that Zuri so proudly shows off is legally gifted to me. All of it belongs to the bakery family." She let the words hang in the air, then turned her gaze toward Zuri, her eyes cold and sharp. "Hand over the keys, please." Immediately, Gasps filled the grand ballroom. Guests murmured, cameras flashed, and phones were lifted high to capture the shocking scene. People leaned in, whispering to each other, their curiosity and disbelief palpable. Zuri felt every eye in the room on her, every breath held, every judgment ready. She looked down at the document, the words blurring slightly as shock gave way to a sinking, heavy feeling in her chest. Malik's voice cut through her thoughts, quiet but terrifying in its betrayal. "Just sign it, Zuri. It's family," he murmured, leaning close. His hand brushed hers, but there was no warmth in the gesture, only expectation, a quiet demand that she surrender what she had worked her entire life to achieve. Zuri's heart twisted painfully. The man she had trusted, the man she loved, had sided with his mother without a second thought. She felt a wave of heartbreak, of disbelief, as if the world had shifted beneath her feet. But beneath the heartbreak, a new emotion began to grow: rage. A clear, cold, burning clarity that rose in her chest. She had built that penthouse with her blood, sweat, and countless sleepless nights. No document, no threat, no elite gathering could take that from her. Her eyes lifted, meeting Queeneth's smug gaze. "Do you really think you can take what I earned with lies and intimidation?" Zuri's voice was steady, low, but it carried power. She could see the brief flicker of surprise cross Queeneth's face. She hadn't expected defiance, not in public, not from Zuri. In that moment, something inside Zuri shifted. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the public humiliation, it all condensed into focus. She realized she had underestimated nothing. This was bigger than a fight over a penthouse. It was about respect, justice, and taking back control of her life. Every insult, every sneer, every whispered judgment would be answered, not with tears but with action. Zuri straightened, letting the crowd see her composure, her strength, her refusal to bow. Malik's whisper, Queeneth's proud smirk, the flashing cameras, they all faded into the background. She had been blindsided, yes, but no more. She would not just survive this moment. She would turn it around, and when she did, no one would ever question her power again. Zuri stepped out of the grand hall, the hum of whispers and camera clicks fading behind her. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't beg or plead. Instead, she walked with a quiet, determined calm, each step measured, every breath steady. Inside, her mind was a whirlwind, not of fear, but of plans. She had been through struggles before, had fought for every single thing she owned, and she knew one truth clearly. No one could take what she had earned if she refused to let them. As she walked along the hotel balcony, the warm Mombasa breeze brushing her face, her thoughts flashed back to how she had built her empire. Every investment, every apartment, every small victory had been calculated, smart, deliberate. And the crown jewel, the penthouse Queeneth now claimed as hers? Zuri allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. She had thought ahead. The property had never been solely in her or Malik's name. Years ago, she had placed it under her private company, a strategic move no one in the family knew about. That meant Queeneth's claim was built on empty air, a house of cards waiting to collapse. And there was more. Zuri had a secret weapon, someone she trusted completely, attorney Jabari Ndlovu. He wasn't just any lawyer. He was a legal strategist from Johannesburg, known for taking high-profile cases and turning impossible situations into victory. The type of man who could dismantle lies, expose deceit, and protect her with precision. Nobody in Malik's circle knew Jabari existed, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Queeneth's plans had been meticulous, yes, but so was Zuri's preparation. She had played her cards quietly, waiting for the perfect moment. Zuri pulled out her phone, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline racing through her veins. One message, short, clear, commanding. It's time. She hit send before second-guessing herself. That single line carried everything: anger, clarity, and the promise of retribution. Jabari would act, and when he did, the people who thought they could humiliate her, take what she had earned, and dismiss her worth would be exposed. For the first time in hours, Zuri allowed herself to breathe. The storm wasn't over, not by a long shot, but she was ready. She had the law on her side, the truth on her side, and her own unshakable strength. Queeneth thought she had control. Malik thought he could manipulate and intimidate. But Zuri was calm, calculated, dangerous in the quietest, most effective way possible. She looked out at the sparkling waters of the Indian Ocean, imagining the ballroom inside, the faces of the guests frozen in shock when the tide turned. The calm before the storm was hers to command. And soon, very soon, everything Queeneth had tried to take would be returned. Not just the penthouse, but her dignity, her power, and her victory. The grand ballroom was still buzzing from Queeneth's dramatic claim when the doors swung open, and all chatter stopped. Jabari Ndlovu walked in like a storm, calm, confident, every step measured, his presence commanding attention without a word. The crowd instinctively parted, sensing the arrival of someone who didn't belong to the ordinary, polite chatter of the elite. Cameras pivoted, guests leaned forward, and even Queeneth's smug smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Jabari's eyes locked on Zuri, and she felt a rush of reassurance, a wave of certainty that finally, justice had a face in that room. He strode straight to the center of the ballroom, cleared his throat, and with a voice steady but sharp, announced, "That document your mother-in-law just presented? It's forged. Illegal. Worthless." Gasps echoed louder than before. Queeneth's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. The room froze, everyone turning toward the unfolding confrontation. Jabari didn't pause. He had no time for theatrics. "And there's more," he continued. "Your plan, Queeneth and Malik, to take Zuri's penthouse, transfer it, sell it, and split the profits. You underestimated the law. And you underestimated her." Malik's face drained of color. He looked like a man caught in a nightmare, unable to move, unable to speak. Queeneth's eyes flickered with panic, her carefully constructed image of control cracking before the elite audience. Every whisper, every sideways glance, now turned into shocked stares. Phones were raised higher, recording everything, broadcasting the moment live on social media. Jabari pulled out another folder, thick with documents, messages, and evidence that left no room for denial. "Here is proof of your plotting," he said, laying out the messages where everyone could see. Queeneth had been meticulous in hiding them, but Jabari's investigation had uncovered every detail. The late-night texts, the instructions to Malik, the plans to claim the property as family when it was never theirs. Every word was damning. The room erupted in murmurs, whispers, and incredulous gasps. "I can't believe it," someone said. "All of this over a penthouse?" Another guest whispered, "She's been set up." Queeneth's composure finally shattered. She clutched the forged document like a lifeline, her confidence gone, replaced with panic and desperation. Malik stammered, trying to find words, but Jabari's presence and the evidence left him paralyzed. Zuri stood tall, her chest rising with calm pride. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to cry. The room could see her victory in her posture, in her unshakable gaze, in the quiet strength radiating from her. Queeneth had tried to humiliate her, and Malik had chosen silence over loyalty. But now, under the brilliant lights of the ballroom, with hundreds of witnesses and countless cameras capturing every moment, the truth was out. And Zuri was untouchable. The ballroom was still buzzing from Jabari's revelation when he raised his hand for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice firm, calm, and sharp. "What you just witnessed was not just an attempt at humiliation. It was a crime." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Fraud, coercion, defamation, property invasion. All of it documented, all of it provable, and all of it will be addressed in court." Gasps swept through the room again, but this time, there was no doubt, no whispers of disbelief. Jabari laid out the evidence carefully, showing Queeneth's messages to Malik, instructions on how to pressure Zuri, plans to transfer the penthouse, even notes on how to sell it and split the profit. Every word was damning. Every line proved the scheme had been deliberate, calculated, and completely illegal. The room was silent, stunned by the depth of the betrayal. Queeneth's face went from smug to pale to frantic in seconds. She tried to protest, tried to claim innocence, but the cameras, the witnesses, and the evidence left her no escape. Security quietly stepped forward, placing a firm hand on her arm. She struggled for a moment, then, realizing the weight of her exposure, allowed herself to be escorted out of the venue. The whispers of "how could she?" and "I can't believe it" followed her like shadows as she disappeared through the doors. Malik's shoulders slumped. He looked at Zuri, his eyes filled with guilt, shame, and a desperate need for forgiveness. "Zuri, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. But Zuri's expression didn't soften. Years of betrayal, of silent judgment, of choosing his mother over her, had built a wall she wasn't ready to lower. She shook her head slowly, every movement deliberate. "You didn't lose a penthouse, Malik," she said, her voice steady, strong, and piercing. "You lost me." The words landed like a hammer. Malik opened his mouth to respond, but nothing could undo the years of hurt, the betrayal, the silence in the moments that mattered most. Zuri didn't turn away. She stood tall, letting her presence fill the room. Every guest, every camera, every whisper could see the truth. She had not just survived this attack, she had won. The energy in the room shifted. No longer were people just witnessing a scandal, they were seeing justice in motion. Jabari stood by Zuri, calm and unwavering, the embodiment of the law that now protected her. Zuri felt a quiet thrill of victory, not just because she had protected her home, but because she had reclaimed her dignity, her power, and her voice. In that moment, Zuri realized something important. This wasn't just about the penthouse. It was about showing the world and herself that she would never be underestimated, that no one could take what she had built, and that her life and her choices belonged to her alone. After the chaos of the wedding, Zuri didn't rush to celebrate. She moved quietly, deliberately, making sure every step she took solidified her power. The first move was clear. She filed for divorce. Malik had betrayed her in ways that went beyond the penthouse, beyond the humiliation. Choosing to separate wasn't just a legal step, it was a statement. She was reclaiming her life, her independence, and her dignity. The news hit the bakery family like a thunderclap. Malik, once seen as a respected figure in Nairobi's elite business circle, suddenly found himself exposed. Partners who had trusted him began to pull out of deals. Meetings that were once scheduled months in advance were cancelled. The whispers that had followed Queeneth at events now followed Malik too. How could someone allow themselves to be complicit in deceit? The very family he had tried to appease turned against him. Queeneth's downfall was even faster. The once feared matriarch of the bakery lineage became the subject of ridicule. Social events she had once dominated now whispered her name with snickers and disbelief. Photos of her public humiliation circulated online, people sharing clips of her dramatic claims, and the moment Jabari revealed her forgery. From feared and untouchable, she became a cautionary tale. How greed and obsession could turn power into mockery overnight. Zuri, however, stayed above it all. She gave a calm, confident interview to one of Africa's leading lifestyle networks. In the video, she spoke about her journey from a young woman juggling jobs in Nairobi to a successful real estate investor, the lessons she had learned about protecting assets, the importance of financial literacy, and the need for women to take ownership of their wealth. Her words were simple but powerful, relatable but inspiring. Every sentence carried the weight of someone who had been tested and emerged stronger. Within hours, the video went viral. Social media erupted. #PenthousePower trended across Africa, with millions of shares, comments, and messages celebrating Zuri's resilience. People praised her intelligence, her foresight, and her courage to stand up against family betrayal. #ZuriWins became a symbol of independence and female empowerment. Women, young entrepreneurs, and even seasoned investors sent her messages of admiration and solidarity. Zuri read the comments late into the night, smiling quietly to herself. She had never sought fame, nor did she crave public validation, but this was different. This was recognition of her strength, her choices, and the life she had fought to build. While Malik and Queeneth were busy falling from grace, she had risen higher, not with loud vengeance, but with quiet, undeniable power. In those moments, Zuri understood something deeply. Revenge didn't always come through anger or confrontation. Sometimes it came through silence, strategy, and sheer, unstoppable success. And in her case, it wasn't just personal, it was a message to the world. Never underestimate the woman who builds her life on her own terms. Zuri's life had changed completely, but she didn't stop there. With her reputation stronger than ever and her confidence unshakable, she expanded her real estate empire. Nairobi was just the beginning. She invested in properties across Africa, each one a symbol of her hard work, her intelligence, and her refusal to be held back. Her latest achievement was a stunning penthouse in Cape Town, overlooking the ocean, a reminder that she could create her own world anywhere she chose. But Zuri didn't just want personal success. She wanted to empower others. She started a mentorship program for young African women, teaching them about financial literacy, investment strategies, and the importance of protecting their assets. She shared her story openly, the struggles she had faced, the betrayal she had endured, and the lessons she had learned. Her message was simple. Women could be independent, smart, and powerful if they believed in themselves and prepared wisely. The program quickly gained attention, inspiring a generation of young women to take control of their futures. And through it all, Jabari remained by her side, not just as a brilliant legal mind and business partner, but as someone who understood her drive, her values, and her heart. Their professional partnership had grown into something deeper, built on trust, respect, and shared ambition. Together, they were unstoppable, a force to be reckoned with in business and beyond. Zuri often stood on the balcony of her new Cape Town penthouse, looking at the city lights and the ocean stretching out before. She thought about the past, the betrayal, the challenges, and the victories. A smile curved on her lips, quiet but full of power. She had not just protected her wealth, she had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her future. "They tried to take my home," she said softly, "but I took back my life."